Yeah, we'd all really like to be better pilots, wouldn't we? I mean, we don't want to be worse pilots. Maybe you should get a float rating. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name is Graham Wilson, and today, as usual in my basement, I'll be talking to you about float flying. So that's to the uneducated or the novice out there. Oh yeah, that's that plane on pontoons. Ooh, you don't really call them pontoons. You call them floats. And you don't get a float rating, you get a seaplane rating. All this terminology you got to learn in aviation, but hey, that's all part of the game. And yeah, so I'm just going to get right into it and kind of talk along the way. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do something different today. I will tell you right away how you will improve. Number one, you will use your feet. Number two, you're going to be able to read the weather. The weather. I'm not flying in Quebec. The weather better, and you'll think ahead. There you go. The end. Okay, now if you want to hear more about that, I heard Mr. Beast does that. Hey, this is what we're doing, and then you do it. So I don't know, works for that guy. So how does float flying improve your skills? Oh wait, before that, I'm gonna get to a little story. This is where I got the idea for the show today. I was out at the airport yesterday, and I ran into one of my former students, and he has a plane, and I was talking to him about, how he got his night rating and everything else. And he says, and I got something else. And I was like, oh, really? Which I was thinking maybe he got an instrument rating, but it turns out he went up north and he got his float rating, which is fantastic because I always say for I tell it to every pilot or a student or anyone, because I'm a flight instructor, every little thing you do in aviation that's a little bit different, another rating, another license, another level of training, it all makes you a better pilot because you can kind of pick and choose these other little lessons and these little things that you've learned along the way. You put them in your pilot trick bag, and when you got to pull the trick out of the bag, the rabbit out of the hat, I don't know, something like that. You got more in your bag of skills. So, how does float flying improve your skills? Like I told you, number one, you will use your feet. Okay. And that's skills with a Z or a Z if you're American, because it's mad skills. Okay. Yeah, you will use your feet. And I was thinking about that. I got multiple whiteboards here today, so this should be fun. And you get to see some fantastic artistry here. Okay, so let's take a look at a float. It's funny. I got my float rating. When was that? That was probably 20 years ago. No, geez, getting old. Time flies. Yeah. When did I get that? 2018 years ago, maybe 17. And from what I remember, there was this one little preparatory ground instruction, little classroom session that you'll have before you do your training for your seaplane rating. And I remember he drew a float. He must have done a good job because I remember it years later. So here's your float on your plane. Now, this is the way it used to look. All right. It used to look like this. Kind of like a canoe. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll put some water in there too. Here you go. So originally hey Wrench and hey Shecky, nice to see you guys. Look at that fine artistry. Yeah, so that's the way the floats used to look like on the float plane. Yeah, let's have the plane going this way. All right, look at this awesome airplane. We are looking good today, boy. We'll make it a Cessna. So there you go. There's your awesome airplane. And you're going to take off. But this thing here, when they first designed it like a canoe, it couldn't really get out of the water. So it's like, if you're ever in a pool or something like that, you take your arm and you try to take it flat out of the water in the pool. You can feel that suction against your arm, right? So that's the same. It works the same way with the floats on an airplane. If you just try to get it up, get it like to tilt it up so you can take off, it just stays in there, and that suction keeps you from getting off the ground. Aha. So the engineers way back in the day, and I actually I prepared for my change I'm gonna make here. Whoop. And so what they did was, dropping that. I'll put that over there. Okay, so what they did is they made like a little step here. It kind of cuts like that. So if you look at any float, seaplane, or the pontoons on it, you'll see that there's a little cutout section there, and they call this area here the step. Okay, so if you say the plane is on the step, it means it's booting along the water, and the water is just kind of hitting there. So when you hear the airplane is on the step, this part of the float is on the top of the water, and then you speed up really quick because you're not all in the water, you're on top, kind of shooting across. So that is the step. And then because you normally steer with your rudder when you're up in the air, well, you don't have any brakes on the water, and you don't have a steerable nose wheel or anything like that. So how are you going to turn? So they have all these funny little cables and doodads and wires, and they all kind of come back here, and they have a rudder that goes into the water like that. It's not really square, and it's kind of spring loaded, so that if you land, you forget that, and it can come up and go down. So if you're in the water and you're steering around, that little guy there is attached to your rudder pedals. So when you move your rudder up here, that'll move you a little bit. But this little water rudder, as they call it, that will move too. And getting back to, you will use your feet. So it's all kind of wishy-washy on the water. So whenever you're taxiing around on the water, it's not like a nice direct linkage steering wheel. It's you move this in the back, and you move this here, and you really have to use your feet full, all the way to the floor, if you want to go anywhere. And then this guy can steer through the water. So it wakes up your feet. If you've never flown if you're used to flying a tail dragger, you're used to using your feet a lot there too. But if you're just like most people that you learn how to fly on, I don't know, like a Cessna 172 or something, or a Cessna 150, or any of those little kind of starter training airplanes, and that you can fly around and just forget about those two little pedals on the ground, and you forget about them. And the planes are all pretty forgiving, and nothing really happens too much if you forget them. And then if the guys that are flying the big jets and stuff, they don't touch those at all when they're up flying around. Most of the time it's the autopilot flying, and then they just kind of ho, I'm just flying along here. Feet, what? That's for steering on the ground. For the big jet guys, and they get really lazy feet. So this here, you cannot have lazy feet, or you'll just be going straight. So that, and then once you have your lazy feet, and you get your float rating, and you get active feet now, that sticks with you, and you'll take that with you. And it's like you'll keep your eye on the little ball on the turn coordinator there a little bit more. So yeah, there we go. So you will use your feet. And so another thing there too is okay, you know what I'm gonna do here? We're gonna change. We're gonna go from here we are taxiing in the water, and we're gonna remove the water and put them up in the sky now. Here we go. There we go. Look at that. Now he's up in the air. And then we're going to put our water rudders up. So before you take off, you take your water rudders and you kind of go like that. They pivot, and you can pull them up. And so you're flying along like that. But another reason why you will use your feet is because when you're up in the air, okay, you see these pontoony, I will call them floats. Okay, so you got your floats like that. They're very straight, and so your plane doesn't want to turn too much because the air is going by here. It just wants to go straight. So if you're trying to bank or something like that, I will bring out the KD-12X Mark II for another explanation here. So let's just say you got your floats are down here. I didn't make a float plane. Maybe that'll be the KD-12 Mark III. It'll be a float plane one day, maybe. So you got all this weight down here with my crooked wings. Oh well. all this weight, and it goes straight. So if you want to turn, you see airplanes, they bank and then they turn like that. But if you have the floats there, it'll just kind of bank. Whoop, I'm trying to keep my wings level here. It'll bank. Eh, nothing really wants to turn until you kick the rudder, and then it turns. So if you're doing this and just flying along straight, that is uncoordinated flight, as they say. And you'll try to bank, and like, this thing's, I want to go over there, but it's not going. Oh, and then your ball on the coordinator is off, and you're like, oh, I better use my feet, and the feet help it turn. So yeah, so like, it just kind of the floats they'll mess up the original aerodynamics of the airplane a bit, and you have to compensate that by using your feet. Another thing, the last little thing about using your feet is that if you are doing any type of crosswind landing. Oh, hey Vanessa, welcome to the show. So yeah, we'll imagine that we have our floats going right down here on our airplane. If you are landing, let's say you have a bit of a crosswind from over here. Well, to get to where you want to go, you kind of turn into the wind. So you're gonna be kind of cockeyed coming in sideways. But if you're like that and you have your float here, you're gonna catch a float and dig a float, right? So you don't want to do that. If you ever do see airplanes that dig a float, where the float kind of gets under the water, it just noses over instantly. So it's like, you don't want to do that. The pressure is on. So you will use your feet to you'll be coming in like this, maybe with your crosswind, and then you'll have to do your, just what you're trained to do on a regular plane is, you'll kind of bank into it a bit, use the rudder to straighten you out. So you're going to be landing kind of on one float first, just like that. And if you don't, you're all you're all crooked, and there's danger of flipping your plane over. So the pressure's on. So whenever there's pressure on, usually people will rise to the occasion. Oh, hey Harold, welcome to the show. Okay, so we're using our feet on our awesome float plane. What else? We were up in the air. Yeah, we did it. Okay, cool. Now the next thing I will talk about, we're going to get rid of the excellent artwork, and I'm going to draw a lake. Because, well, float planes, they take off of water, right? And the rules there, if you didn't know, that when the airplane is on the lake or on the water, it's a boat. Legally, it's a boat. So it's you are under the same rules of maritime traffic. Air law does not apply to you. You're a boat. And then as soon as you get up in the air, you're an airplane, and you have a different set of rules. But so here we go. We're just going to say meteorology. And if you're a pilot, you know what that means. It means meteorology or weather. So one of the things I never knew until I got my float rating, it was pointed out to me that you have a big lake and you always want to take off into the wind, just like seagulls. If you ever notice that, seagulls are always, if they're on the ground, they'll tell you where the wind's coming from, because if they're standing on the ground, they put their beaks into the wind, and then they can take off if there's any predators. I'm not sure if other bigger birds do that. Seagulls do that all the time. Because I kind of learned that because I used to cut through a parking lot all the time to go to school. And where was that at? Yeah, I'd cut through the Legion parking lot all the time to go to school. And then the birds would just kind of hang out in the parking lot. And like on a windy day, you'd have like a collection of birds. And you could feel the wind with the variable winds, and the birds would all do at the same time. They'd all turn into the wind, and then the wind would change, and all of them would turn into the wind this way. So you'd see all these birds all turning in unison. And then I put it together. Hey, they're into the wind. There we go. And I don't even know if that's on any other channel other than the Super Pilotish channel. But there we go. Yeah, so let's make a lake. That's probably one of the best lakes you've ever seen in your life. So anyways, for our purposes, we are going to say that the wind is going to be coming from here. Okay, so there's the wind. It's coming from there. How do you know? And then, so if you're going to take off, you take off into the wind. But how do you know the wind is coming from there? You can't the lick the finger and stick it up in the air. It doesn't usually work. But whether you're or if you're going to come in and land, hey, I want to land into the wind too. How do I know where that is? Well, if you have this lake, let's just say there's going to be some trees over here, trees, maybe like a rock face or something like that. There's your trees. Oh, let's put trees all the way around. Here we go. Lots of trees. Because we're up in northern Ontario, tons of trees around. Look at that. Oh, wow. Look at all those trees we got to watch out for. It's kind of cool when you come into land, you can buzz right over top of the trees and, don't hit them or nothing because you can get, you can get like leaves and stuff stuck in your wheels. Or if you're, I guess it'd be stuck in the floats. But I only know one person that actually I know a couple guys that have had various vegetation upon landing in their landing gear. Oops. Not me though. And so the wind's coming this way, and so it's going to go over these trees, and you're going to see that the waves are going to be pushing over here onto the other side of the lake. So it's going to be all the waves will be crashing that way. And then over on this side, it'll be all glassy water, as they say. So like here, it'll be totally, totally calm because the wind hasn't kicked up the waves yet. And you'll have all the waves like this. So if you see something like that, and you're flying around, you'd say, oh, okay, this is the glassy water where there's no waves at all. There's waves over the rest of the lake. You could maybe there's even like a little, there might even be like a little peninsula sticking out here. And then same thing there. You would have like the waves crashing there, and this would be your glassy area on that side. Anyways, that's how you know where the wind's coming from. And I never knew that until I did my float rating. And they don't really teach you that if you're just going to be flying from an airport, because you'd say, okay, look at the windsock or look at something else. And then you like sometimes if you're landing somewhere, there's no weather information at all. So you got to kind of see maybe some guy's got a campfire over here. They're having the campfire and you can see the smoke coming like that. There we go. Okay, now you know the wind's blowing that way. So yeah, there's a few other little things you got to kind of use your brain and kind of figure out what's what. And then same deal. And another thing too, you got to watch out for here because we know that the wind is coming over here, and you would be taking off into a headwind. But here, the reason it's glassy is because it comes over the trees and there's really not much there. So if you were flying your airplane, cutting it really close, you'd have headwind, 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 lots of lift. Then you hit this part here, just skimming over the trees or getting up to the trees. You might lose all your lift and boom, you go back into the trees. So I think there's weird downdrafts and things around the trees. So you want to take off as far away from the trees, more in the middle. There we go. That is probably some of the best artwork I've ever done. So, all right. And so it will improve your meteorology mad skills. Okay, let's do. I don't have a superpilotish 5 today. I just got 3. But on the ground, 3 to 5 things is about all you really need to know. So, and as another kind of a follow-up to the meteorology is that I'm talking about you're going to land at this lake, and this is so there's a lot of thinking, and you have to be ahead of the airplane, as they say. And you really got to think ahead. What's my next move? Or if that one doesn't work, what's my next move after that? If that doesn't work, what's my plan C? So it's, it gets your brain thinking in a different way. You're not exactly spoon fed all this stuff like, hey, this is your wind speed and direction. This is your altimeter setting. This is go take off on this runway and I'll tell you when it's safe. Okay, go. No. So when you're thinking ahead, okay, if you're going to come in and land, okay, I'll redraw the lake here. Look at that. Perfect rendition of the other lake. So Maybe you got your wind like you had before. You got your trees all the way around. And you're like, oh, great. I'll just land there. But do you know, and you can see your waves. Okay. Now, what else is on the surface of that lake? It's not like someone was going out and they're cleaning the runway or anything like that. What's in there? You might get a little bit closer. And what do you see? You see a moose swimming in the lake. That's probably the greatest moose ever, right? So that can happen if you're up north of you. You go into land, and on final approach, hey, there's a moose and her calf like swimming through the lake. I can't land on that. So a lot of times you'll just kind of do a low approach and kind of check it out. A precautionary approach, as they say. Yeah, because you can have moose swimming in there. You could have maybe I've heard they call them deadheads, where maybe it was a lake that was artificially created by a hydroelectric dam down the river, and they flooded the area, and then there's a bunch of forest underneath there that just got flooded. So you could land and you could hit a deadhead, like it's just a tree in the water. It might be just underneath the surface of the water, but you don't want to be dinging a float off of a chunk of wood or branches, floating in there. Lows, you can have certain, if you're by the shoreline, especially up in northern Ontario, there could just be rocks sticking out there that you don't really see. I know, especially up around like Manitoulin Island, Bruce Peninsula, just past there. It's very, very flat in the water, and sometimes there was one guy I used to work with at a machine shop, and he went to his buddy's cottage, and they would sit there and drink beers and watch people wreck their boats because as he said, like there was it looked, if you're just riding in your boat, it's really deep, but then there was a really sharp drop off. So you went from maybe like, I don't know, 30 feet of water, and then like a sharp drop off to like 6 inches of water. And he said they just sit there and drink beer, and guys be driving their boats, and they're like, oh, here comes another one. And then wham, they just wreck their boat, and then they like walk out there, kind of push it off or whatever. Oh yeah, I got some fiberglass. We can fix that up, yeah, so all these guys would wreck their boats, and but you wouldn't want to do that on an airplane if you're at an unfamiliar lake with your awesome looking moose there too. And then thinking ahead too is you're going to come into your dock, right? So you got to dock it just like you're docking a boat. And then, so now where is the wind? Where's your dock? Like, is the wind, maybe your dock's over here. There's your dock. So you're going to want to dock mostly into the wind if you can. But then you're thinking, if the wind's coming this way, my dock is on a bit of an angle. Okay, that's going to kind of push me into the dock. So I have to plan to cut my engine over here, allow the wind to push me into the dock, or it could be the other way. It could be pushing you away from the dock. So you might have to wait a little bit longer before you cut the engine and get into docking. Docking is one of the hardest things that you can do. Another thing about thinking ahead is if you're at where I used to fly was up in Sudbury, I'd get on the radio, and like they had a little office there, and I'd be like, can someone come out? And they call it, if there's somebody sitting on the dock and they're going to help you dock the plane, they call it catching the airplane. They'll be like, can you get someone out here to catch me? And they're like, oh no, we're all busy right now. And be like, okay, when are they not going to be busy? Oh, another 10 minutes. Okay, I'll fly around a bit more, and I'll give you a call in 10 minutes, because yeah, it's tricky docking, especially if there's any wind at all. And you need someone, if you can have somebody there to catch you, that's way better. They can just grab a strut, and or that's why you'll see sometimes on float planes, they'll have a rope hanging down. That's for someone to catch the plane on the dock. I don't know if you've ever seen that. You'll see them flying along and the ropes are up in the air. That's so they can just reach out there and grab the rope and then pull it into the dock. So that's what those ropes are for, if you've ever wondered, watching all your YouTube float flying videos. Yeah, so you got to think ahead. Where's the wind going to push me? Where should I cut my engine? So that's you're thinking a little bit even more ahead of the airplane than you would if you're just at an airport. So, all right, let's summarize that. How float flying improves your mad skills. Number one, you will use your feet to keep that ball in the middle and taxi around and on the water, stuff like that. And if you're landing on a crosswind, you will definitely use your feet to land in a crosswind because you don't want to flip over. Your meteorology skills will become better. You will be able to read the wind like a ninja, and then and then you can think. It'll get your brain thinking a little bit more ahead, because the consequences are embarrassing if you start dinging floats off of docks. I've done that once. It's not fun. I had to pay. I kind of smashed into the dock a little bit, and it was just a little dent, but I had to pay a little extra to get that dinged out or get it bumped out over the winter time. But it wasn't leaking or nothing. It was just like, man, it came in too fast. But yeah, they make mistakes. All right. Well, I'm gonna go kind of take a look through. Take a look through these comments, questions, and what do we got here? All right. If you just do lakes, why is it a seaplane? There's probably an explanation for that, but I have no idea. I guess probably I would say the sea, water. Maybe that kind of incorporates everything, or maybe they used to always just be on the ocean where they were developed and stuff. Like in England and France, they had a lot of seaplanes. Like the Spitfire was originally designed as a seaplane racer, and then it became the Spitfire. So yeah, I don't know about that one, Wrench. Maybe you could research it and let me know next show. Okay. Uh, Okay, here we go. What does a float plane rent for? Biggest obstacle. I know plenty of people that have just done it once. Also, tell float versus hull. I'm not sure what you mean by that one exactly. Okay, so anywhere that I've seen where they've rented float planes, it's usually a little bit more expensive than, like, say, I've only ever flown myself in a Cessna 172, a couple different models of Cessna 172, and they were both, at the time, I don't know, it was like just a little bit more expensive than a Cessna 172 would be on wheels. So, I think the insurance might be a little bit higher, so that might account for that. But I don't know exactly why. But anywhere I've ever looked, it's just a little bit more than a regular 172. And if you're doing it, you will be paying an instructor to go up with you until you actually get checked out to do it solo, and you get your full rating and everything. Float versus hull. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm catching you right here on this one, Wrench. I'm thinking maybe you're saying the hull of the. Okay, I drew my little float like this with her step. Okay, so that was our little step there. And if you'll notice, not sure if I'm getting you here, but I was thinking about telling you that too. If you ever see any flying boats, like was it PBY Catalina or what are those other ones? Martin Mars, the big flying boat things. They might have four engines on them or something. You'll see that the hull of the airplane, or or like the bottom of the airplane, is shaped like that little step. I don't know. That's all I got. um, you can put another. I'll as I go through, I'll check it out, and maybe you can clarify. What else we got here? Yeah. Okay. Looked it up. Lots of schools don't do solo rentals at all. One is 250 for 172, 300 for a 180. Yeah, actually, Cessna 180s. If you're renting those are getting expensive. Lots of gas, big engines, and yeah, I mean it's dicey renting out a solo float plane. There are more accidents. Usually just little bumping into the dock, or like mostly accidents for float planes. I would say that I've heard they're little, like taxiing accidents, nothing really too big. But I mean, there are some. It's the problem with the float planes is like up here in northern on or in Canada, anyways. A lot of these guys will they'll go out fishing and have a bunch of beers and then fly home and crash their plane. It's like, dude, you shouldn't be doing that. But yeah, people living up north, they're a different breed. Nice people, but yeah, sometimes the rules and laws, if you're out in the bush, kind of go out the window, and that can get dangerous. Okay, Shecky, must be a blast to launch off water. Yes, it's very fun. I forgot to totally mention that. How I was just talking about how being a float pilot is like how it can improve your skills, but it's super fun too. Like it's just really neat. Another thing there about float flying too is if you ever do take a passenger up with you, I've heard it from a few people that like maybe that they don't really care about flying, or they might be a little nervous in the airplane, but I've heard that people that are a little nervous about planes and stuff, they feel a lot more comfortable in a float plane. I don't know if it's slower, lower to the ground. One guy I talked to, he felt like because he was sitting up front next to the controls, he could always take over and land the plane if he had to, even though he had no idea how to fly. But yeah, but he felt more in control by being up in the front. So and the transition from hey, I'm floating around on the water. The plane will bob around like a boat too, until you give her the gas and off you go. And so I think that could be kind of calming for people before they take off, rather than hearing a bunch of radio chatter and whoa, I don't know where we're taking off here at the airport. You're just like, I'm on this lake. This is comfortable, and then you're up in the air. So it can be a very for passengers. It can be pretty. I don't know, less nerve wracking. Oh, and yeah, Vanessa said that the lake near Elmendorf Air Force Base had the largest float plane runway up there. It was on the base. Yeah, I wonder if Elmendorf, I'm not sure exactly where that is, but interesting. Oh, here's another one here, life vests. Yeah, that's the one thing. Life vests are not required in a float plane, but any place that I went to, they gave you the option, or what do they call it? A Daisy May. It's like this. All the guys that like World War II pilots used to wear. It's like a life preserver for pilots, and you just kind of stick it on. It's like a vest, and then, but it's not. It can be inflated once you get out of the airplane. Because say, if you are in an airplane and you have to get out, okay, you get out, and you could be upside down. It could be like pretty dangerous that way. So, but you got your vest on, so even if you're upside down, you get away, you kick away from the plane. You can pull the ripcord or whatever it is, and then it expands and floats, and that'll bring you up to the surface. So those are, I don't know if I ever did, if I ever had a job doing that, I would take. They have courses for underwater egress, is what it's called, and they get you in a pool and they flip you upside down, and you got to get out of the airplane. And I would probably take that if I had a float flying job. But I didn't even know that really existed when I got my float rating. But that'd be good to have. And so life vests, they don't have the conventional, like the conventional life vests that you have for a boat or a canoe or something like that. That would not be useful in an airplane, because if you flip over upside down, or even if you're submerged a little bit, that makes you want to float. You might have to get out under a doorway to get out. So that would not be. You got to have the specialized life vest for that. Oh, okay. Elmdorf was in Alaska. Okay, that would make sense. And what else we got here? Thank you for the terrific moose compliment there, Harold. Always appreciate it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so Shecky is backing me up here. Lake Isabella there's some old towns are in the lake. Yeah, here we go. And has that effect with trees under the water. See, oh, there we go. See, Shecky says I'm not lying to you, so that's good. I got backup on that one. And okay, that's it. Daisy May, Mae West. That was it. Named after the big chested actress, of course. Yeah, see, that's how long it's been since I've been out of the float game. I never really was in it too much. I originally wanted to become a float pilot, and so that's why I got the rating. Like, I wanted to do it for a job and then do that for a while, then go fight forest fires. But then one thing led to another, and then I found out like how hard the job is of being a bush pilot. And yeah, you're spending a lot of time loading and unloading planes and digging drainage trenches around camps and picking up garbage and dodging black flies and mosquitoes and stuff. So it really wasn't for me. But yeah, I got about, I don't know, just kind of fun flying. I got about 20, a little over 20 hours on floats. So, but it's still fun. And I do think it made me a better pilot. So, okay. Yeah. So that's about it. And look at this. Shecky said I had a great show. Wow. Thanks, man. See, he's not lying again. So, and Harold, you have a great day too. So, yeah, that's about it. Today is Friday, so I'll be back on Monday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. I will just kind of shut her down. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks for coming here. Like and subscribe. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.